Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. So the only way he figures that he's going to get reelected, and as sure as you're sitting there, is to start a war with Iran. Now, I'm more militant and more militaristic than the president. I believe in strength. But to start a war in order to get elected, and I believe that's going to happen, would be an outrage. This is a great time to negotiate. Unfortunately, we have a president that doesn't know the first thing about negotiation. We have a real problem in the White House. So, I believe that he will attack Iran sometime prior to the election because he thinks that's the only way he can get elected. Isn't it pathetic?
Here are the steps that Donald Trump has taken to create a war with Iran. First, he tore up the Iran nuclear agreement.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
Second, he has escalated crippling sanctions against Iran. Third, he designated Iran's military as a terrorist organization. And fourth, he continues to deploy more and more U.S. troops to the region. We've got to stop Donald Trump from starting a war with Iran.
This is one of the worst deals ever made by any country in history. The deal with Iran will lead to nuclear problems. All they have to do is sit back 10 years, and they don't have to do much, and they're going to end up getting nuclear. I met with Bibi Netanyahu the other day. Believe me, he is not a happy camper.
There's no doubt that we have other problems with Iran, but personally, I'd rather deal with the other problems having put that lid on their nuclear program than still to be facing that. And Donald never tells you what he would do. Would he have started a war? Would he have bombed Iran? If he's going to criticize a deal that has been very successful in giving us access to Iranian facilities that we never had before, then he should tell us what his alternative would be. But it's like his plan to defeat ISIS. He says it's a secret plan, but the only secret is that he has no plan.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Each of you begins your career in the Army at a crucial moment in American history. We are restoring the fundamental principles that the job of the American soldier is not to rebuild foreign nations, but defend and defend strongly our nation from foreign enemies. We are ending the era of endless wars. In its place is a renewed, clear-eyed focus on defending America's vital interests. It is not the duty of U.S. troops to solve ancient conflicts in faraway lands that many people have never even heard of. We are not the policemen of the world. In everything we do, we're fighting for the faithful citizens of this country. This includes putting a stop to the catastrophic era of endless wars. Endless wars. They don't stop. They don't stop. They go on forever. We become policemen. We end up becoming police. We're policing these countries. That's not what it's about. We've spent $8 trillion in the Middle East. Thousands of American soldiers have lost their lives. Tens of thousands more have been severely wounded. And in all fairness, the other side has lost millions of people. Millions of people. Think of it. These wars brought mass chaos, instability, destruction, and death. American combat troops should not be at the center of ancient sectarian conflicts all over the world. Bring our soldiers back home. Bring our soldiers back home. And when I ran on a basis we're going to bring our great soldiers back home where they belong. We don't have to fight these endless wars. We're bringing them back home. That's what I want on. And some people, whether you call it the military industrial complex or beyond that, they'd like me to stay. One of the problems I have, and one of, for instance, with the witch hunt, you have people that want me to stay. They want me to fight forever. They do very well fighting. That's what they want to do, fight. A lot of companies want to fight because they make their weapons based on fighting, not based on peace. And they take care of a lot of people. I want to bring our soldiers back home. We're not a police force. We're a fighting force. We're the greatest fighting force ever. Biden shipped away our jobs, threw open our borders, and sent our youth to fight in these crazy, endless wars. And it's one of the reasons the military, I'm not saying the military is in love with me, the soldiers are. The top people in the Pentagon probably aren't, because they want to do nothing but fight wars so that all of those wonderful companies that make the bombs and make the planes and make everything else stay happy. But we're getting out of the endless wars. You know how we're doing it. Is also owned by the radical globalists, the wealthy donors, the big money special interests who shipped away your jobs, shut down your factories, threw open your borders, and ravaged our cities while sacrificing American blood and treasure in this ridiculous, endless wars, set of endless wars that we've been in for a long time. 19 years, they're all coming back home. You know that, right? They're all coming back home, our great warriors, our great soldiers. He invested $2.5 trillion in the military. We put $2.5 trillion in. We have the best weapons, all made in the USA. We have the greatest weaponry we've ever had. No country has ever come close to the kind of firepower we have. Hopefully, hope to God we never have to use it. We have firepower and weapons, and the Republicans did it because the Democrats don't. We have to have that. Otherwise, we're going to be at the mercy of other countries. We have the greatest firepower, the greatest weapons in the history of the world. Hope to God that we never have to use them. I withdrew from the last administration's total disaster, the Iran nuclear deal, okay? Obama gave him $150 billion. That was bad, but he gave him $1.8 billion in cash. How the hell do you do that? What does $1.8 billion in cash look like? They must have looked at that. They said, man, plane loads of cash. When I left office, we had virtually ended the endless wars. These endless wars, they go on forever. They go on forever. I would go to Dover and I would see caskets, coffins coming in. I'd see the parents and wives and husbands. I would see the kids. Endless wars, 19 years in Afghanistan. We have it down to almost nothing left, and I hear they might want to go back in. Iraq. Remember I used to say, don't go in, but if you're going to go in, keep the oil. We didn't keep the oil. We had made historic peace deals in the Middle East like nobody thought were even possible. With not a drop of bloodshed. And instead of endless wars, we are forging peace in the Middle East. At the same time, the new administration unilaterally withdrew our crippling sanctions on Iran, foolishly giving away all of America's leverage before negotiations have even begun. Leave the sanctions, negotiate. Does anybody understand what I'm saying here? Are there any good business people? You don't have to be a good, are there any bad business people? They took off the sanctions. They took off the sanctions. A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes.
Satellite imagery showing the extent of the damage to U.S. military facilities across Gulf Arab countries is starting to emerge, part of Iran's furious response to an Israeli-American campaign that decimated its leadership. At least 9 U.S. military positions have been hit in less than 48 hours. This is the port of Shuaibah, where just after 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, an Iranian strike set a makeshift U.S. operations center at the civilian port ablaze. 6 American service members were killed in the attack.
As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell, and always will be.
You just mentioned that the president is going to attend the dignified transfer for these families. Given what Secretary Hegseth said this morning, is it the position of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?
No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should accurately report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that has threatened the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration and that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across the country and for every troop that is based in the Middle East. That's what the
America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history. B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles, and of course, classified effects. All on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives.
As one of the earliest incidents of this war, it remains perhaps the most devastating. A girls' school in the southern town of Minab destroyed on Saturday morning, more than 170 people dead. The vast majority young girls killed in their classrooms.
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets.
But there are now mounting indicators pointing towards U.S. responsibility. While Israel had been concentrating its fire on western Iran, the U.S. military says it attacked targets in the south, including the coastline of the Strait of Hormuz, where Minab is located. The building housing Shajara Tayyibeh Elementary School used to be part of an Iranian Revolutionary Guard naval base, but for at least a decade had been separated by a perimeter wall. Military buildings are close by to the south and east. Saturday's attack appeared to flatten some of them and leave a precise hole in the roof of another building close by. The school building was almost completely destroyed. On Tuesday, the people of Minab mourned the victims of the school strike. Scores and scores of coffins bearing pictures of girls aged between 7 and 12. The UN Human Rights Office says it has significant concerns about whether international law was followed in the attack and that the timing of the strikes was indicative of disregard for civilian life.
Reuters Ipsos had the poll out today, and they found only 27% of Americans approving of the strikes compared to 43% disapproving, with 56% of people thinking that Trump is too willing to use military force to advance US interests, including 60% of independents also thinking Trump was too trigger happy.
Look, we built in the last 3 years, we built the strongest military by far. And I told the story, I was embarrassed to tell it, but now I'll tell. When I first got in, a general told me we could have had a conflict with someone, said, "Sir, we don't have ammunition." And I said, I never want to hear a president, I just never want to hear somebody have that statement made to them again as president of the United States. We don't have ammunition. Think of how bad. Now we have so much ammunition, we don't know what to do with it. To ensure you have the very best equipment and technology available, my administration has embarked on a colossal rebuilding of the American armed forces, a record like no other. After years of devastating budget cuts and a military that was totally depleted from these endless wars, we have invested over $2 trillion, that's with a T, dollars, in the most powerful fighting force by far on the planet Earth. We're rebuilding our military stronger than ever before, and we are not going to deplete it again on stupid, senseless, endless wars. We have a great modern military, but that doesn't mean we're going to waste it. It doesn't mean we're going to deplete it like we did before with these crazy, endless wars. I spent $2.5 trillion over the last almost 3 years rebuilding our military. When I took it over, it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. It was totally depleted. You know that. A lot of people know that. Honest people all know that. When I was thinking about having to do something, one of our generals came in to see me and he said, "Sir, we don't have ammunition." I said, "That's a terrible thing you just said." He said, "We don't have ammunition." Now we have more ammunition than we've ever had. We have more missiles. We have more rockets. Our nuclear's been totally updated and in some cases new. Hopefully, to God, we never have to use it.
Various systems, the US Patriot and THAAD systems, and Israel's Iron Dome have provided a defensive shield from Iranian missile attacks around the Gulf. It's been likened to hitting a bullet with a bullet, except the missiles are faster than any bullet. And it's 85 to 90% effective, although debris from missiles shot down can still be deadly. But just days into the war, air defence stocks are running low. It's estimated the US has been burning through a year's supply of THAAD missiles every 12 to 18 hours. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Iran was producing more than 100 ballistic missiles a month. That's 10 times the number of interceptor missiles the US can build. And it's expensive. A suicide drone can cost Iran $25,000 to make. A Patriot missile to take it out, $4 million. A military doctrine says 2 defensive missiles are fired to ensure the attack is neutralised. It's been likened to using a Lamborghini to stop a lawnmower. Donald Trump claims the US has an endless supply of munitions, yet America has started moving air defence systems from Asia to the Middle East. That's why it's targeting Iranian launch systems, as missile experts say the UAE and Qatar could run out of stocks within days.
One of the most complex set of challenges we face and have for many years is in the Middle East. Our approach is based on principled realism, not discredited theories that have failed for decades to yield progress. Our brave troops have now been fighting in the Middle East for almost 19 years. In Afghanistan and Iraq, nearly 7,000 American heroes have given their lives. More than 52,000 Americans have been badly wounded. We have spent more than $7 trillion in fighting wars in the Middle East. As a candidate for president, I loudly pledged a new approach. Great nations do not fight endless wars. My administration has acted decisively to confront the world's leading state sponsor of terror, the radical regime in Iran. It is a radical regime. They do bad, bad things. To ensure this corrupt dictatorship never acquires nuclear weapons, I withdrew the United States from the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. And last fall, we put in place the toughest sanctions ever imposed by us on a country. We will not avert our eyes from a regime that chants death to America and threatens genocide against the Jewish people. I withdrew from the last administration's disastrous Iran nuclear deal, which was a catastrophe. President Obama, give us $150 billion and we'll give you nothing. Give us $1.8 billion in green, in cash. He gave him $1.8 billion in cash. That's when I realized how powerful the presidency is, when you can do that. What a horrible deal. But we broke the deal, and I'll tell you, probably the first call I'll get after we win the election will be from Iran, dying to make a deal because they're down 28% GDP. Nobody has ever heard of a thing like that. That'll be the first call I get. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. Well, they're going. I mean, we're negotiating right now, but they're not getting to the right answer. And we're not going to see people. We're not going to see what's happened for 47 years keep going. 47 years we've been doing this with them. The Obama deal was the worst deal. Nobody ever saw a deal so stupid. Right now, if you did the Obama deal, if that held, if I didn't terminate it, Iran would have a nuclear weapon, and it would be a whole different ballgame. At the heart of the Iran deal was a giant fiction that a murderous regime desired only a peaceful nuclear energy program. Today, we have definitive proof that this Iranian promise was a lie. Last week, Israel published intelligence documents, long concealed by Iran, conclusively showing the Iranian regime and its history of pursuing nuclear weapons. The fact is, this was a horrible one-sided deal that should have never, ever been made. It didn't bring calm, it didn't bring peace, and it never will.
They've been enriching well beyond the number that you need for civil nuclear. It's up to 60%. They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb-making material, and that's really dangerous.
You've probably heard this line before.
Iran has never given up its quest for nuclear weapons and the missiles to deliver them.
That's because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying this for more than 30 years. In 1992, as a member of parliament, Netanyahu addresses the Knesset. He says, within 3 to 5 years, we can assume that Iran will become autonomous in its ability to develop and produce a nuclear bomb. 3 years later, in his book Fighting Terrorism, he repeats the same time frame, 3 to 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Fast forward to 2002. Netanyahu testifies before a U.S. congressional committee actively calling for the invasion of Iraq.
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The two nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran.
The invasion happens months later. No weapons of mass destruction are found in Iraq.
They're online.
It's 2012, and Netanyahu is holding up his infamous cartoon bomb at the UN General Assembly.
By next spring, at most by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
And now, 33 years after Netanyahu's first so-called imminent warning, Israel attacks Iran.
And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year.
Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again, they can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. We continue to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
Speaking to reporters in New Jersey, President Trump contested Ms. Gabbard's claims.
The material that they've gathered already, it's a tremendous amount of material, and I think within a matter of weeks, or certainly within a matter of months, they're going to be able to have a nuclear weapon. We can't let that happen.
What intelligence do you have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon? Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Yet, just 10 days ago, Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff again warned there was an urgent need to intervene in Iran, saying the country was a week away from obtaining the materials needed for a nuclear weapon. But was that really the case? According to experts, the answer is clear.
Non, les Iraniens n'étaient pas à 2 semaines d'avoir.
No, the Iranians were not 2 weeks away from having a nuclear bomb, a functional nuclear weapon they could launch at Saudi Arabia or Israel. We're certain of that. It is possible that some activities are taking place in secret, but even those activities could not lead to the manufacture of a functional nuclear weapon in 2 weeks.
D'une arme nucléaire fonctionnelle en 2 semaines.
But I'm curious your reaction to President Trump saying Iran was 2 weeks away from the bomb.
That is simply not true. As your previous guest from the House Intelligence Committee said, the administration has presented no evidence to back up their claims of an imminent threat, not the missiles and certainly not the nuclear weapon. And here's why we can say that with some confidence. We have a very good idea of what Iran has, and the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, has helped certify that. And we know how much uranium they have, in particular, how much 60% enriched uranium they have. And that's the stuff they would use to make a bomb, the core of a bomb. They could take some of that material, put it back into centrifuges, wouldn't take that many, a couple of hundred centrifuges, and in about a week or two, they could have enough material for a nuclear bomb. And people often confuse this, a material for a bomb and a bomb. But the material is the hardest part of making a bomb, but it's just the first step. Then you have to turn that enriched uranium, 90% enriched uranium, into a metal. You have to shape it into the components of the bomb. You have to assemble the bomb. You have to have a bomb design. Iran probably has that. They probably got it from A.Q. Khan of Pakistan. And then you have to test that weapon. And that's a necessary step. For example, North Korea, their first nuclear test was a fizzle, didn't work. They had to test it again. And then you'd have a crude bomb. If you want to put it on a warhead, that's months more of work. But all of that just to make a bomb would take several months of work, even if they were doing it in parallel with their enrichment process. So 2 weeks, no way.
Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.